Ladies and gents, we've got an interesting topic right now. Oh dear. So this is a resurfaced interview with former DC president Diane Nelson. And she revealed a lot of interesting stuff, actually, stuff I can't really argue with, actually. But she throws Joss Whedon under the bus, talks about the higher-ups at Warner Brothers as a whole and how bad they are, their mismanagement of stuff, and how they should have had more autonomy. Basically, what they've got now, actually, at DC. So it's fascinating stuff. So let's take a look. Certainly, there was an undercurrent of frustration that we were not hitting the mark. We were not a standalone studio the way Marvel was. They were a freestanding studio with their own production budgets and their own production staff. They were really charting their own course, and they did an amazing job of it. The fans assumed that we at Warner Brothers were replicating the organizational structure of Marvel. In fact, we did not, and it was quite intentional. And then we talk about the sort of DC team, etc. I don't know that there was an appreciation for the extent to which DC team really just had a seat at the table. We would have had the heads of each of the relevant businesses in DC to talk about DC-related issues, including our slate of films and TV shows, video games, and so forth. But DC was not the one leading that charge. And honestly, I'm not sure there was anyone leading that charge. It just wasn't the culture at Warner Brothers to dictate a particular strategy. I mean, that's the dumbest thing ever, but fine. And then they talk about this slate of movies as well. So they're like, the idea of a slate just felt like window dressing. The bottom line is there was never a thoughtful, well-controlled, confidential slate process. And I think it's the single biggest thing that made us look amateurish. Certainly relative to Marvel, if not just on its own. Yep. And then Zack Snyder. What was Zack Snyder? Kevin Feige? No, apparently not. So this is interesting. Unless there were meetings that happened that no one told me about, which is possible, I don't know that there was ever any conversation where it was decided that Zack would be leading the DC slate for any particular period of time. So even if it wasn't a conscious decision for Zack Snyder, being our Kevin Feige, from a consumer standpoint, that's kind of what happened for a while there. There's a place for Zack's movies, and I would have always wanted Zack to be part of the DC filmmaker lineup. But should he have been the one defining that universe? Maybe not, in hindsight. Hard questions. Now, the funny thing is, it says as well about Zack Snyder, his version of Justice League. There was a desire to ensure that the movie was not too long and that there was an opportunity for more heart and humor. And then, we're going to bring in another director to help. And this is where they slammed Joss Whedon's Justice League. My characterization is Joss was a bit of a shiny penny during the time when they were looking for something shiny to grab onto. Yeah, I mean, I thought the final film was terrible. Yeah, I mean, I would have much preferred a darker than I wanted or longer than I'd hoped for Zack Snyder cut than the Frankenstein cut we got in theaters. And this statement's completely true. The Trinity characters of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman should have, by any measure, blown any other superhero movie away, and they didn't.
Sounds like she's basically saying what everybody else has been saying the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, yeah, hindsight, come on now. But she says on the film, there are so many things I would do differently. I certainly think that DC would have benefited. The company would have benefited much more strongly had DC been its own independent entity with its own ability to mandate and set a slate and a vision for its properties, whomever ran it. It needed to report to the CEO, and it, I believe, should have been set up independently the way Marvel was with its own budgets and so forth. So basically what is happening with DC right now. But I just thought this was utterly hilarious. What on earth do we think of that? Because I think that is absolutely brilliant.
Glad to see somebody in the loop over there actually coming out and saying what everybody else has been saying the whole time.
Well, she's only free to speak because she's not there anymore. I mean,
yeah, pretty much.
This is exactly the thing that you guys were saying during the course of the article. This is what we were all saying for a while, that there didn't seem to be a cohesive vision. There didn't seem to be a proper leadership structure. There wasn't any of the films they didn't live up to the success that they needed to. I was really disappointed in You know, when you have your top 3 characters, you know, all present in one movie, and it can't pull massive numbers. I mean, that film should have been like 1.5 billion, 1.6 billion dollars. It couldn't pull that.
Massive, insanely.
I call bullshit on her because it was their fault. The reason Joss Whedon was their fault. They're the ones who brought him in.
Not wrong.
So I don't know why the fuck they're blaming him for any of this. And that's the same goes for any fans either. Like, look, I'm not trying to stick up for Joss Whedon in any way, shape, or form, but he had the least to do with any of this shit. He was brought in to mop up this fucking mess. And that's exactly what it was. This fucker had gone over budget, over schedule. It had become Zack Snyder's little pet project, you know, and that's what people forget about this whole thing to begin with when they're bitching about, oh, I want Cavill back and this, that, and the other. It's like, guys. This is what got us here in the first damn place. Because Zack Snyder didn't know how to make a Superman movie, and then they shoved Batman into the next Superman movie, and they wanted to make everybody Batman.
And if I may, real quick, it wasn't Snyder who wanted to shove in Batman. He wanted to do Batman v Superman Part 2. The people who did that are the likes of this bitch talking right here. She's as guilty of everything that went down.
And why, Andre, why was it so important that they get Justice League out before the end of the year?
Oh, that was so that the Kevin Tsujihara, the Warner head honcho at the time, could get his bonus, because he knew he was going to be fired next year anyway. He wanted that bonus so badly.
Yeah, so rushed it on out. It's sort of similar situation with Ron Howard and Solo. You know, he came in, you know, after the whole mess had been made, and he didn't give 2 craps about that Solo movie.
Yeah,
King
Katie, yeah. Diane Nelson is one of them to blame. Exactly, Nick. And you're right, 100% with Solo. Yeah.
So
that would be like us blaming Ron Howard for Solo. You're 100% right, Nick. And we had a group of us were sitting in a hotel room with Ron's brother Clint, and that's what Clint said. He goes, "Yeah, he felt real bad because he thought you guys really got mad at him over that Han Solo movie." And we're like, "No, we didn't hold no grudges against him."
Yeah,
like, it's everybody else. He's like, first of all, the last movie was bad. Second of all, no one asked for a Han Solo movie.
Yeah.
But third of all, your brother was just coming in to mop up a mess at that point
and get a paycheck. Plus, he was getting money for his own studio, which is the only reason he even took the job, anyways, because they were going to give him like $3 million for his own studio company. He didn't give 2 jack shits about Solo. It was all to get that paycheck.
But I find it funny that they're banging on about, well, you know, was Zack Snyder. There wasn't a clear sort of, you know, conversation he was going to lead this. Then why did he lead it all? Literally, why did he lead it all if there was never a clear-cut conversation? I mean, Zack Snyder must have been talking to someone up high at Warner
She's
Brothers
full of shit, too.
To get all of that.
She's totally full of shit, too, because we all remember from the original what was going on. Zack Snyder was the shepherd. I think they were referring to him as their Kevin Feige at that point.
It did. Yeah. So she's flat out lying.
She's full of shit, and she's trying to pass the buck off of the executives back onto the creatives again. And at this point, it has nothing to do with Zack. It has nothing to do with Joss. The only thing that has to do with Zack is that allowing him to have complete creative control over this entire universe is what got us there in the first place. Because it was his vision that informed everything going forward, even up through the Flash movie we were just talking about.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was one of the key
then
creative heads on Wonder Woman as well, wasn't
and there was a hot second where they took him out of control and Ben Affleck was in control, and that's when Ben Affleck wrote his Batman movie. Then that was such a flash in the pan. Then they brought in John Berg, and what was the other guy's name? Andre, help me out. Berg and
Jeff Johns.
Jeff Johns and Berg.
Jeff Johnson, not Peter Berg, but some other Berg.
I can't remember the damn dude's name. The Berg's dude name. Anyway, so they brought him in, and those guys were seeing it up until what? Hamada came in control.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So that's the hierarchy right there. So, and then the main patch, the worst patch, was the Jeff Johns, Berg era, because those guys were trying to clean up the mess from Snyder era, plus try to reformat the DCEU all during woke period, which really didn't help. Because at the end of the day, Jeff Johns isn't the worst writer, but he's not the greatest one. So I mean, you had somebody there who's ostensibly a de facto Kevin Feige. They just didn't really utilize him, I don't think.
Yeah. Oh dear, oh dear. Funny though. Funny. It's like the snake eating its own tail type deal.
But
always find these things.
Aren't you feeling now like this is going to happen more frequently? People are going to start coming out and pointing fingers and saying, "This is why we ended up where we are. This is why this wasn't good enough." You're going to start seeing it not only from them at Warner's, right? But I think you're also going to see it from Disney folks too. As Disney folks have left,
oh, I don't know about Disney,
but their NDA deals are going to start to expire. And
they're under NDA for a significantly long period of time. I thought.
Yeah, so many have been fired. It's gonna someone's gonna spill.
Yeah, I think it's only 2 years. And I mean, you even have people that are technically under NDA now because they've been hired as consultants that are actually saying some kind of interesting things. So
I think she was fired in 2018, so this would be her 5-year anniversary.
Okay.
Oh, that makes sense then. That makes sense. That would make sense. Oh, well, there you go. Hilarious stuff. Hilarious stuff.
I think it's wonderful.
It is. Yeah, it's pretty funny, to be honest. It is pretty funny.